So we have an Exmark X Series here. This is actually my mower. This is actually what started me getting into this business of mechanics and stuff for work. So I actually owned a landscape maintenance business. I did that for 21 years. I performed all the work. I was super busy all the time. At my peak, I had 67 customers I took care of a week, in many acres of mowing. But this is a Kohler X Series Exmark, or I'm sorry, this is an Exmark X Series mower with the Kohler EFI engine. On this particular engine here, I have 4,657 hours and a half, 0.4. So 4,657.4 hours currently on this mower. And basically, as long as you take care of things and you maintain the things, these things will last you for a long time. So overall, basically what's going on with this one, the head on this side, there's a stud where it broke and I cannot get that stud out. So that stud is it's seized in there. So unfortunately I got to replace this head. I've already replaced the exhaust on this once after I got out of my business and stuff, because this just started, rusting away. So I've already replaced that, that's so I can get a large amount of sound coming out of this down pipe. It's just blowing that gasket and it's just making a large popping sound. So basically, the head that I received, let me grab that real quick. For this particular engine, the head I received is part number 2481803-S. It's a cylinder head gasket kit, or cylinder head kit. So we have the head gasket back there, and then I feel like there's another head. It's interesting. So I have two head gaskets, even though I have one head. And what sucks is with this one, I have to put everything together. So sometimes when you buy certain kits, especially like some of the Briggs & Stratton ones, the head is already assembled and everything. So we're gonna have to put everything together. We're gonna have to lap the valves and do all that work. So before we can do all that stuff, we got to pull that head off. We need to drain the engine oil out of this. So to do that, I actually use this pneumatic air sucking or oil sucking device, which I actually love. You can pump it and do it the manual way, but I don't do that. Technically, I would warm this up to perform this, but I'm not going to worry about that. So let's go ahead and get this oil drained. And sometimes with the hose, what I'll do is I'll stick the dipstick in there just to help kind of lock it in place. So while it's doing that, I'm gonna go ahead and turn off the fuel valve on this mower. It's right here. And so what's cool, the main reason why I special ordered this engine to be EFI versus carbureted, I actually had I still have it, another 52-inch Exmark mower and a 60 Exmark mower along with a 36. And they were both carbureted. I've had carbureted issues during the winter time and stuff. And so therefore I went to EFI, never ever had a fuel issue ever again. So I'm gonna go ahead and let that finish draining, and then we'll proceed to start taking things apart. The best route of going about this, because I have to pull these nuts off right here. There's one here, and there's a hanger part right here to help retain this. The best thing I'm gonna do, I think is gonna the best thing to go about this, I think, is I need to loosen up or pull the clutch. I need to be able to rock this engine a little bit and also pull the engine mounting bolts and stuff. So we're gonna go ahead and start that process. So in order to do that, I need to get the tension off the pulley going to the clutch. So let's pull this off. And this goes up, just like that. Set that aside. Thank you. It looks like I'm gonna have to replace this belt here. It's seen some pretty good use. I can see right here. Let me move this forward. It's a little easier, I think, to see. See, it starting to flake here. So we can get a little bit more life out of it, but I need to replace it. And it looks like this belt is starting to crack along here. So this one's just about to go too. So I'm gonna have to replace that also. So as you go through doing stuff like this, always kind of check things and see what you might have to replace. So like check the bearings on some of the stuff while you're at it. If you spin one of these in a growl, that's an indicator of a dry bearings. If it's wobbling up and down, same gig, and so forth. So just got the belt tension off. I'm gonna go back there. Underneath, let me jack this up. So when you're jacking stuff up, also pay attention to where you're jacking from. I'm gonna jack up right here off of this plate that I have my Velcro wheel attached to. I'm gonna jack it up pretty high because I'm gonna get my floor jacks underneath. So get this all the way up. I'm gonna stick my floor jack right underneath this bar. So this bar right here goes right here and it goes all the way across. It's my brake. So when I pull on this, it moves that, puts pressure on that tire to basically use as a parking brake. So, that's pretty worn. Make sure this is up, and then I'm gonna slowly let her down, taking care that it is firmly on there. I'm gonna go ahead and pull this Velcro wheel off. What's cool about this is I can just pull this here, which it looks like I'm missing a retainer. Basically, it's supposed to be able to pull it just like that and it'll retract. This one, I am missing my retainer. So it's another little fix. So we'll get that off to the side. Okay, so now under here, we're going to disconnect this clutch. And to do that, I gotta lift up on that plastic clip very gently, rotate, and then we got our belt loosened up for the PTO. Now this right here is a retainer bar. So this, what this does is it keeps this clutch from spinning. So when you engage this clutch, which is basically an electromagnetic clutch, and it clamps down and allows this pulley to be driven by the engine. Now, if you do not have this in place, this clutch will spin and it'll rip your wires out and stuff. So some are going to be different than this, but in this Exmark mower, it's done just like this. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to disconnect from over here. I'm going to reconnect my clutch right here, and I'm going to pull this bolt out, and that will allow this to move. So let me go ahead and do that. So this bolt goes up through, and then right here on the top, the nut is right there. So I'm going to set this on here and then pull the bolt like that. Then I'm going to just spin it by hand to pop it out, just like that. I'm gonna take the nut that I took off from up top, and I'm just gonna start it, just like that. So this is now loose. So we just gotta pull that bolt out from the bottom of the engine, and I'm gonna hold this clutch up. It will start to drop down depending on how it retains. So this still has threads in it. I just wanna make sure, yep, it's coming down. All right, so we'll get this out all the way. I'm holding the clutch up with my hand, other hand, and down we go. So this is why I use anti-seize on everything. It just makes sure everything comes off nicely. So I'm gonna set this aside. I'm gonna put the bolt through here, set it aside. Over here, we have our drive system. I have the pulley that's on the bottom of this engine, and we are gonna wanna take this off, I believe. So to get the tension off, we have this spring here and this spring, and that's pulling this back. So I can push it. I'm gonna pop that off and then slowly let this back in its relaxed position and leave it like that. And then this, I should be able to pull off just like so. Like that. And then on here, there's a key. So sometimes take note. So I just pull this down. You can see that here it has a little lip on the inside, and there's no lip here. It's actually taller. So always keep track of, when you take things off, what direction things go. Because you could easily install it this way, but you're gonna have issues. You'll probably shift that pulley way up and all kinds of different things. So pay attention to those details. So I know it went like this with this lip down. So I'm gonna set this on top of my clutch, exactly how it came off. Now, so I don't lose it, I have a key right here. So let's make sure we pop that off and pull it off just like so. I'm gonna set this also with the clutch. So now we have these 4 bolts right here that's holding this engine down. I'm gonna go ahead and loosen them up. There are some nuts on the top that I'm gonna have to use a wrench on. In fact, all of them are that way. So just to show you real quick, so those bolts come up, a nut right there. There's a nut right over there. That also is my ground strap for the engine. So keep notes of those things. So I'm gonna put my wrench on there and we'll pull the bolts out. There we go. That came out. I'll pull that out and put that on so we don't lose it. On the other one, now let's see. Get that one out. And when you're taking them off, make sure you check for length and stuff, so that you know that you don't have different lengths that you have to deal with. Make sure I don't lose this. So on here too, if you look on this side, because this is EFI, they have a whole bunch of other stuff, other wiring, but down in there you can see there's a ground strap also. Not the main battery ground, excuse me, not the main battery ground strap, but the ground strap for the EFI stuff. All the engine bolts are out, so that engine should be loose. Now I'm noticing you see some oil along here. There's some oil there. We need to find out where that oil leak is coming from. So we need to pay attention to that. So now that we got everything out from underneath the engine, that's preventing me to move this engine, I'm going to go ahead and lift this up and get it out from the floor jacks, since we don't need to go under there right now. So I'm using my same jack point, and then we'll drop these down and move them out. And lower the engine, or lower the mower, I should say. Now we need to disconnect things from the engine, because basically to do this, it's just going to be so much easier to pull this engine. So I have this throttle cable here. What I always suggest doing, especially if your throttle cable's in its proper position, go ahead and mark it, kind of like what I did here. This is old marks. You just use a paint pen and then just mark where it's at, where things go, or definitely take some pictures and stuff. So we got to loosen this up, get that out from underneath, and then we have to lift up, and it's a style like so. So then just make sure you don't have things coming off. So that's disconnected, our throttle is disconnected. Now we have our fuel line. So we have our tank here, and it comes down. We have our fuel shut off right here. I'm going to, I think in this case, it's probably going to be easier for me to reach right here. So what I found is if you use this style of clamps right here for hose clamps, if you get yourself some pliers kind of like this, they kind of retain better inside like that. Doing it this way is going to be a real pain, but if you do it sideways, you can generally take them off a little easier. Now you got to break the seal by rotating it. And then let me grab some pliers real quick. And since I'm going through all of this, I'm going to do an oil change. I'm going to change the fuel filter, among the several other things, so that I have a good fresh start for tomorrow. So there's that. I'm gonna kind of tuck this up just so it doesn't drip fuel. Kind of just tuck some of the stuff up, like this fuel line here. We need to get this oil drain tube out from this little retainer right here. So this one has a nice extension, even though I've never used it. So everything else on this side of the engine should be disconnected. So let's, oh wait, except I think this is my breather tube that goes up to the tank. So this goes up. We're going to disconnect it from here. Comes up all the way around. And I'm going to unroute it and set it on top like that. So everything now should be disconnected on this side. So we're going to get on the other side. On this side of the engine, we have this engine harness right here. This connects up for the ECU and such. This is going to be live because the positive lead connects to the starter solenoid, and then I have my starter. So that is going to be live. So we need to disconnect the battery terminal first. So let's go ahead and do that. This is 11. So just loosen this up. I take the ground off first. The reason why I do that is in versus positive, because if I touch this to here to metal, it's like for like. If I touch that to metal, I'm gonna get sparks. So because I'm gonna basically I'm shorting it out. So we don't want to do that. So I always do the ground first, and in this case, I don't even need to disconnect the positive as long as the ground is disconnected. So now that I got this disconnected, I need to make sure I tuck it down in a way so this does not become grounded in any form. This is kind of difficult because this plastic has not been this rubber slash plastic, it's basically, I think it's technically a rubber, is basically seated on here. This blue wire here, that's the signal to my starter solenoid to engage my starter solenoid, which I just disconnected. But I need to grab my heat gun because this is so rigid, I can't even get this to move. So let me grab my heat gun. We're gonna kind of gently soften this up so we can gain access to the nut to the starter solenoid. So we can disconnect the positive lead that's going to that. This is only like a little 750 watt heat gun. We're just gonna kind of go over here. Don't go too crazy on it. Just kind of go over it. Help kind of soften it up a little bit. Try to, it's kind of a pain because I can't really get on the other side so much. That's definitely helping a lot. I'm gonna try to heat up this side a little bit. And it doesn't take much. I mean, it start to, there we go. See, just a little bit of heat can go a long ways. So pay careful attention. There's several wires there that's connected. So I'm just twisting the nut off. There's usually sometimes like a lock washer and such. And there's the lock washer in the nut. And then it looks like this positive lead here, this positive, this is our main. And then there's this one here for the ECU and such. So I'm gonna put my lock nut back on along with my nut. There we go. All right, so I believe we have everything free. I'm gonna pull this plate off. On this plate for these mowers, this just slides up. I kind of need to work this, but it slides up, pulls right off. So we're gonna pull this off. That's for my bag. Now, this is where they get pretty heavy. Now, when you're lifting these things, you gotta be careful where you're lifting from. You can definitely lift from here, underneath the head. You wanna watch where you're putting your hands and stuff. You really don't wanna lift them from the exhaust, but everything, and definitely not the fuel, the high pressure fuel pump.
Is that what that is?
Yeah, so you can lift from this oil filter, and I'm gonna lift here from the starter and the head. So we're gonna go straight up. Okay, so we're feeling some oil and stuff, so we want to see where some of that might be. That's gas, and so it looks like some oil around here. Looks like this might be leaking, this piece here. This looks kind of fresh. It's a mess, so I actually need to clean this up. It hasn't been pulled off in quite some time, but basically what you can see now, our issue is with this head right here. This nut, the stud, is broken. It should be something kind of like that. So basically we got to replace this whole head, because what's happening is I'm blowing a lot of exhaust and it's just making a large amount of noise, and it's just blowing a lot of exhaust out from here because I have so much oil caked everywhere. We're going to pull this outside, we're going to take it to the pressure washer, and we're going to clean this up real good because oil is just going to get everywhere. Also, we got to be careful. We don't want to get we don't want to put water down through the intake here of this engine. This is our air filter here, our intake, so we don't want to get water down in here, and I think the same thing on the other side we're going to want to be careful of too. So usually in those cases I'll put a bag over it, like a garbage bag, just close that up. Outside of that, there's really nothing else. Everything's pretty much sealed right now except for that, so we can go ahead and pressure wash everything else. Okay, then gently down. There we go. Okay, so we're gonna cover up this intake. So take a garbage bag like so, and then just twist this around like this, and then just kind of wrap it. All right.
Hold on, it's slippery. Okay.
Okay, you got her?
Yeah. I almost fell over here. I was running to get Oliver, and my shoe Partly fell off, so I just slipped.
After cleaning it as much of that as possible with the pressure washer, I'm going to blow it with air to get a lot of this water off before we start tearing this apart. We got most of the water off of it. I didn't worry about like getting bone dry because it's not necessary, but we at least knocked off most of that oil that we saw in here. So basically this is the head that we need to get to. So in order to do that, we have quite a few things we're going to pull off. First, we're going to pull off this muffler. Okay, so we got a 13 there, and then we have, it looks like a 10 right here. So let's get the exhaust bolts off. Yep, that's a 10. Oh, and it looks like this one, I'm gonna take it off, the stud's coming out with it. So this one, the stud came out with it. All right, so now let's get the two 10s off, or there's one here. There looks like there was one there, but that looks like that stud broke. Okay, so then I'm gonna pull this straight off. Oh, I forgot. This is EFI, so you can't just pull this off because they have a CO2 or an O2 sensor, not CO2. So the best thing to do on this is basically we gotta pull this off, take this clip off. So 8mm socket, we'll pull the mount off, which is also holding the valve cover on. So I'm going to set that back in. So now that this is loose, we don't actually have to take this off. We can take it off like this. It just kind of helps reduce some of the stuff we have to take off. So there we go. Now we need to, looks like the engine cover has to come off. This breather has to come off. I have to pull some tins off. Quite a few things. I'm going to put this stud back in, right like so. I'm going to put this nut here. I also have my, you can see my exhaust gasket here. So, and you can see actually it burned a hole through it. You can see where it just burned a hole right through this. So that's why it was so loud too, because that wasn't holding to keep this tight. So it's just blowing out the exhaust out that side. So I'm putting these nuts and bolts back in place. Well, stud. This is Torx. Take these three off. It's a Torx bolt with a spacer. Now we need to take these 4 bolts out so we can pull this fan cover off. So some of these haven't come off in a long time. And I'm thinking, dang. That is on there. So let's see here. What am I gonna do? I need to keep this fan from rotating. So I'm gonna pull these bolts out, set in this side. But these are on there pretty good. This is why I always suggest using anti-seize. I mean, you can see that I got some anti-seize on here because it's just a big pipe that water can get into and seize up. But apparently it has gotten in here and seized up on this. So let's see. So the problem is I don't want to go too crazy on the ugga-dugga because eventually you'll just strip them. If not, it's probably going to be something similar to that. So let's see, I'm trying to think. Actually, I think I have an idea. So with those down like that, I can do that.
Even better.
But let's keep that down low. Don't move it, just hold it right there. And I'm gonna just torque against you.
No.
Okay, put that, yeah, the other way. Flip this around so it kind of cups it. And then keep that down low. And then, there we go. That's working. So just hold her. Okay, so it looks like the whole sleeve is coming up.
Really?
So this is why basically you don't want to go crazy like with the ugga-duggas and stuff, because you could
Snap it.
create some issues or increase your chances of damaging things. Like if the whole sleeve is coming up, that's fine. I can deal with that, but and the reason why I'm going back and forth is because what's happening is that sleeve, that tube, I'll show you here in a second, that tube is basically seized to this bolt and it's rotated in there. So I can't, as I'm pulling this up, it's doing this. So I need to go over here and pull this up too, and I'm kind of slowly walking it. So there we go, just like that. So basically what's happening is you have these tubes. Well, it's not coming out of that real easy, but they're basically seized in here. So in order to get that out, I may have to heat this up pretty good to see if I can get that out. So we'll deal with that later, but for now, we at least got this off. So we're gonna set this aside. So we got our fan cover off. This will come off the fan after. So now we got to pull the cover. In order to do that, we have a few things in the way. I have this breather. I have this voltage regulator. Let's go ahead and disconnect that. I can leave it on there. It's just screwed into the housing here, and I can show you that a little bit later. At the fuel pump. And I think that's about it. And then I'm just gonna loosen it up just enough that I can get this 8mm off in the back here. Got that one loose and pulled. I'm gonna put, these are all generally 8mm. I'm gonna put this one in to help retain this dipstick tube to prevent it from coming out, because there's still going to be a little bit of oil in there and stuff. I may need to replace that gasket because this seems a little wobbly. We have a ground strap for a voltage regulator. That needs to get pulled because that goes into the engine cover, into the engine case frame, or the casing. So that's pulled. We need to pull this here. So that's off. And then we have two, it looks like 10mm bolts holding our fuel filter on right here. So we got, in this case, we got to take the two on the outside, and then we can slip that out. And then I'm going to set these just back in place like that. This can sit right here too. The ones that I need removed are this one. Actually, I may actually not even have to take that out. So we'll take that off, leave this disconnected, because I think this just goes in the plastic housing. But these two, I gotta pull. And these are 10s. So this one definitely holds into the plastic right here. And then looks like they're slightly different size. The one inside is a little longer than the one on the outside. So I'm going to set that down over here. So now this side should be free. And then we have up here our throttle assembly. Now, this goes down and connects to our governor arm. So if you look over here, when I move this, it turns this bar here, which turns this paddle, which applies tension to our governor arm on this governor spring. So as I'm pulling on the throttle like this, it applies more tension on this governor and it overrides the governor, because the governor's job is it's going to pull it into an idle position like this. It's going to pull this straight down. And what I'm going to do is, if I want I want throttle, I'm going to override that by applying tension on this governor spring to override the governor and to allow it to rev up. So back up here, we got to pull these 2 Phillips screws. These just go into the plastic. So we got one here and one here. Just pay careful attention. So like over here, if you notice, if I keep this in this place, when I move this, I have this nut here, I have this throttle arm that's going to be keyed, and then I have a spring and a couple washers in between. So you got to pay attention to those little details, because when you take some of the stuff off, you got to make sure that you're able to put it all back in place. They have a purpose for usually a lot of the stuff there. So if you don't put things back, then maybe that throttle is going to stick because that spring's binding. So just keep all that in mind. Let's take this off. So I'm just going to hold that. We're going to loosen this up. I'm just holding this arm down as I'm loosening this. Now, I'm gonna leave that come up. Now, I gotta be careful because I don't want this spring going flying. So I'm gonna take that off just like that. I'm gonna set that aside, take this piece off, and you can see it's keyed. And then we have a spring, and then we have a washer. So yeah, see, and that can just flop down. So let's loosen this up. This shouldn't, actually I do have to take this breather off. So take these 2 screws out. And that should allow me to pull this band up. Let's see if I can do it and pull everything out like that, and then pull this breather up and out and pull this off. I'm going to stick this back on here, just keep that closed, and then I'm going to set these pieces back in place and then set them aside. Now that that's off, I'm going to take this back off again, and I got to take these 2 10mm bolts out. Sometimes if they feel like they're really, really tight, start out, very slow, just like a little bit, which I'm going to show you on this one. So this one is feeling okay. And that's the thing, is like sometimes it's better to do some of the stuff by hand versus like some of the little mini ugga-duggas, just to make absolutely sure you can feel what's going on. It's like this one, it's pretty tight. So like I get it, move a little bit, so tighten a little bit. And then go to loosen it a little bit more, and then tighten a little bit. And then just keep doing that to kind of help work it. And then each time when you go to loosen, go just a little bit further. If you're gentle and careful, you can generally get them out. There we go. Now it feels better. But if you're just in a hurry and just start cranking, even if it's really hard, and just start cranking, and you don't feel anything give, then yeah, you might be in trouble. But if you can get just a little bit of give, even though it's really tight, you just get a little bit of give and you just work it gently, you can generally get them freed up. So that one's removed now. I believe I got to take this ECU off, but I'm going to put this back on because all I'm trying to do is I'm trying to reduce any types of possible contaminants that could get into the engine. Like this goes right into the valve train. I don't want to get debris in there if I can help it. So now let's go ahead and take this ECU off. Looks like 2 8mm. I'm going to let that hang there. I'm going to put these bolts back in part way, just so we don't lose them. It has a washer and a lock washer. And then there's 8mm back in here. And this one is more of the traditional bolts that we see along here that we've been taking off. Now I believe this should come off, like so. And then that's our voltage regulator. So this is what's charging. They have the fins on the inside on some of these to help keep these cool. So that's what that guy is. These 2 plastic screws, I'm gonna put just back in here. Just kind of help reduce the amount of loose bolts that I have to keep track of. All right, and then this fan can come off. This should basically come right out like that. They're just big spacers. So when I go put these bolts back, the bolts back in, making sure I'm putting lots of anti-seize on that to help prevent that from happening like these did. But later on, we'll see if we can get those off. You got to pull all of this off because the intake, that has to come off in order for me to replace that head. So there's a lot of debris and stuff on here, so I'm going to see if I can blow some of this off. So that's what I'm going to do right now, and then we're going to start taking this stuff apart. I'm just trying to reduce the amount of debris that could end up in the engine. So let's go ahead and start disconnecting things and removing things. Let's see, I'm trying to think of the best way of doing this because basically all I got to do is remove this head. But in order to do that, I need to have some movement here. So let's go ahead. I'm going to pull, let's see, is this part of the head? No. So we have, yeah, so our head stops about right here. So I'm not going to pull this. I'm going to pull this bolt, this bolt. So this actually engine right here, the intake manifold gasket, which is right there, and there's another one over here. That's actually what started this whole business that I'm in. Is I bought this engine, or this mower with this particular engine, and this intake manifold gasket has failed. It's actually failed on me total of 3 times. Later on, they had a bolt-in on increasing the torque values of these 2, or 4, because there's 2 over here, intake manifold bolts to increase those because they were failing. The gaskets were just getting sucked up. So yeah, but anyway, let's go ahead and take these off or start disconnecting things. So to disconnect, you just kind of pinch and then gently pull up. So when you do that, just be gentle and be careful. Some of this actually, I don't need to necessarily disconnect, but that I want to, because I'm going to take this off, which then I'm hoping, let's see, is there anything? Man, there's actually a lot to, so let's go over here. On here, oh, and this throttle position sensor, that's what this is. This actually is from my truck. Okay, so Kawasaki or Kohler said that these throttle position sensors are not the same ones that they use in vehicles. It's crap. Because this very one right here is actually from my Chevy W4500 Tiltmaster, which is a Chevy 350 a Vortec engine that has the throttle position sensor. This one is actually from my truck, and the one that was on here is on my truck. I put it on there on purpose back then to prove a point. So when they tell you that certain things are not the same, some of that is true and some of that's BS. Some of the stuff, it does not make any sense for them to remake when you can just go off and buy stuff off the shelf. That particular sensor, throttle position sensor, if you buy it through Kohler, it's pretty expensive, but if you just buy one for a vehicle, it's like a third the cost. It's much cheaper. So this here, we got to disconnect. So this one here, I think it's an oil pressure, and this one is temperature, block temperature. So pop that up, disconnect that, so that's free. Let's see, so everything else is free except for this throttle rod. So to take this off is we got to push like that, and then you lift straight up. And then I'm going to grab a pair of pliers, and then you lift up like that, and that is off. Now I'm going to take it off completely because it's going to probably, actually I might be able to get away with leaving it on there, but this plastic piece definitely take off because you will lose that. We're going to rotate this back now that we got that disconnected there. Now I think I can just take these two bolts off, and then we can lift this up enough. So these are both 8s. And do you know, pay careful attention, like there's a ground strap right there. So there's a ground wire there. So there's a ground wire there, so you got to pay attention to that. And then take this one off. I'm just going slow because these are, I can tell that these have not been off in a long time. It's always sometimes nerve-wracking. I'm just going a little bit more each time. Just slowly working it. Because I can feel quite a bit of resistance, and these bolts are really, they're not that thick. Like slowly as I do it, I can actually see some gunk come out, and we got it. Thank God. Yeah, so it's pretty rusty. That's why I use anti-seize, and I'm just checking, making sure they're the same length, and they are. So we got that off. Now I got to do the same thing on this side. So on that side, just making sure. So this one had a washer on it, but it's probably for this wire strap. Now to get to the one under here, I got to disconnect that, and it's down there. So I'm going to grab a different ratchet, a little smaller one, because it's kind of tight in there because of how this is angled. Okay, so yeah, it's another one of those nerve-wracking ones. Like I can feel it starting to go. You just got to be patient, but also anti-seize, like I said, it's your friend. So when we put this all back together, we're going to make sure we use anti-seize. All right, so it's coming off. I'm holding the air filter assembly, and we got her. I think I actually added these lock washers on here, but yeah, you can see the rust and stuff from all these years. Okay, so Now, we have our fuel line. We're going to disconnect this high pressure fuel line rail. Let's see if we can get this in. There we go. Cool. So that's disconnected. It'll give us a little bit more room. Let's see this here. Let's see. So to disconnect this, let me grab a flathead. So this wire strap here, there's this piece right here that I gotta pry up a little bit, and I'll open that up and I can get that kind of pulled out. So now let's see how is the rest of this connected. Man, I think we're gonna need to cut these. We're gonna actually have to disconnect quite a bit. I was hoping to reduce the amount of stuff I have to take off, but unfortunately, in order to do this right, because I need to clean those real good, I'm gonna have to give myself much better access. This is a mess, so I need to get this off. So that comes up and out. Yeah, this is actually my map sensor, I believe. And I didn't want that actually out all the way. I just want it disconnected. So let me gently blow. Need to try to wipe out to not get any dirt back in there. Okay, so that's pushed back in. So this needs to come out. So this is all unplugged except for, let's see, this injector here. Let me blow some air so I can see how this comes off. Let's see, so this one I pressed right here. So it should have something, but it looks like the clip is broken, so that's great. So grab a pick. What I'm hoping for is I can reach my pick in here. See, I gotta be able to lift this up a little bit. And the thing is, I should be able to push on that and it'll lift up. So I'm wondering if maybe, so this, unfortunately, this is where you have to kind of get creative when certain things aren't coming off as they normally would. Dang. So let's see. I don't want to pry on it. Let's see. So what's the best way? The best way, I think, might be a wider screwdriver, and I can push down a little bit and see if I can pull it out. So hold on. Okay, so that worked perfect. So what I did is I went in here, and because this you need to push on, I reached my flat-headed screwdriver in here and I pushed down with like this, and then pulled up on this, and that's how I was able to get this one off. So right in here, went down, and then just kind of pushed back, and I was able to get that off. So thankfully that worked. Now let's see if we can get some of these wires unwrapped. This wire here is connected to the throttle position sensor, and then this one is underneath. So I need to undo that high pressure line, get it out from underneath like that. And then, so this guy, got to figure out on here. Let me see. Okay, so it looks like I just pressed down, but it just doesn't feel. Let's see. So there's a little tab in there. And what I'm doing is I'm reaching under there. See that right there? I'm reaching up and I'm sliding this in just so I can hit it to get it just over that. And that's what I did there to get that off. So that worked. Okay, I think we are almost there. Okay, so over here too, that ground strap right here. I'm going to take this zip tie off. There's a ground strap there. Pull that strap or zip tie out. And can we kind of just lift this up and out of the way? Okay. So yeah, and actually it looks like this gasket may have failed here. So I'm gonna put a couple pieces of paper towels over those holes just to help reduce any debris getting in there. And the same thing on the other. Because really we want to reduce as much garbage that we could possibly get in there. Same thing on these intake tubes, since they're exposed. Since these are exposed, I'm just going to pull this off, and then I'm going to put these in here. Pull this one off. Because we don't want to be sucking in dirt. All right. And then we got to be careful with our wiring. So I'm trying to get everything kind of tucked off and out of the way as best as possible. We have our heat shield here. We have another heat shield here. We have this heat shield. Well, it's not heat shield technically. It's a air diverter. Basically, it helps guide the air to blow over this engine, which are very important. So let's go ahead and disconnect this spark plug wire. Pull this bolt off. And then over here, we have another one on the bottom side. Yeah, so this is another one of those where it's kind of, there we go. Like if I felt a lot of resistance and just kept on building resistance, I would not keep going. But if it had a little bit of resistance and then just freed up, then I feel comfortable with continuing. But otherwise, I would take it very slow in hopes that you don't break it off. I mean, I expect to have, some stuff like this just because I got 4,500 hours on this thing. Many hours. This thing's been a workhorse. Okay, so this shield should come up and out. And I always try to kind of place things how they came out. Set it all on the ground in order. Yeah, and there's a lot of oil right along here. I might have even had a potential head gasket leaking. So it's hard to say. We'll find out more when we take this further apart. Okay, now we need to get this shield removed, which is another 10 right here. While I'm thinking about it, I'm actually going to take these bolts that I took off. I'm going to put them back in. where they came off. It's just easier to remember exactly where they were in case that got bumped. Okay, so we need this shield off. So there's another 10 here. And I'm actually curious to see what kind of piston play I might have and what the bore looks like. So that's loose. I'm gonna set that right over here for a second. So there's an 8 mil right down here, and I'm gonna actually take that off because that's gonna be kind of difficult to work with like that, because this has got to come down a little bit. So maybe if I just even loosen it up. So it's kind of hard to see. Let's see, I think it actually, I got to pull this off in order to do that. So this is where the ECU mounted to. Oh, these are actually for my starter. So this is actually for the starter. So my starter bolts go through here and out. So we'll set that aside. Well, I guess it's a good thing we're pulling it off. There's a lot of gunk in there. I noticed my drain tube, oil dissect tube. So we'll just take that off and put it off the side. But I do want to put some paper towels over the hole, just kind of stuff the hole. I am going to disconnect this ECU. So I should be able to just press on there and pull that out. Press it on here. So sometimes by pressing it and then using something flat down low can help, but it's not helping. These things haven't been off for God knows how long. And so what I'm doing is I'm just reaching in here, grabbing this little, the nub in here, or right where this is, this little bump. I'm just going in here and I'm pressing on, pushing up gently on the lock, just to get it over that little nub. And then see if I can help nudge it off. Because what's going on is there's so much dirt packed on top there that it's keeping it from being pressed down as easy. So now that I got that off, we'll set this ECU aside. So we'll loosen this up. I'm hoping I can just loosen it. Okay, so now, yeah, see how we can just, but the more I look at it, the more I actually want to take it off, because I want to wipe out the oil residue and stuff, because this thing hasn't been apart. So all of that I want to wipe out. So I'm going to take this bolt and put it on here, and then that paper towel that I was talking about earlier, I want to close this up. Make sure none of that debris gets in there. There we go. So like all of this garbage we want off. We're gonna clean this up. Yeah, see, all this is all the years of just using it. And it's been a good mower and a good engine. We want to pull this spark plug out. We want to get this valve covers off. We want to set the engine to TDC on this cylinder. It's just going to make life so much easier. But I'm noticing right here, there's a lot of gunk, and our head gasket is going to be right in this area. So I don't want all this garbage getting down into this engine, because otherwise then it's going to render everything I'm doing in the bin. So let's go ahead. I'm going to see if I can kind of wipe some of that off, and then, okay. That's much better. I just didn't want a large amount of stuff getting in there. So let's take this valve cover off. And what I'm doing is over here, I'm just going to take my flathead and I'm just going to pry up gently right here. So we'll open that up. Let's set that over there. And we need to get this spark plug out. Okay. So sometimes you can't use these magnetic sockets because sometimes the clearance is too tight, so you need something more thin. So usually in those cases, this socket has the rubber piece that I pulled out, which makes it a little easier to get into those tighter spots. So let me pull the spark plug out. Yeah, that thing's been running a little bit of oil. That needs to be sorted. So now let's go ahead and set this engine to shop dead center. Still have the spark plug on that one. So that's all the way up. So that goes exhaust. It's going down. And then that's intake. So now I should feel right there. That's top dead center. So this engine has hydraulic lifters. Let's go ahead and remove these head bolts. We'll start loosening these up. And all I'm going to do is start loosening them up first. That one's kind of loose. So I don't like how that one's not seating in there. So we are going to want to do that hopefully by hand. Oh, that one's felt loose. There we go. So these two actually felt loose, which would kind of explain some of that oil there. What I also noticed is on this side where the dipstick is, if you look at the mower deck, you can see there's oil here like this. So that tells me I might have had a loose oil filter maybe at one time. My dipstick is over here and then that head is over here. I think that dipstick, the gasket around the dipstick was leaking, and I think that's what this is. And then we probably had some of the head gasket through here. So we'll find out when we take this more apart. But that's kind of what I'm thinking so far. So I'm thinking about all these things as I'm going through all of this, so I can hopefully address everything, especially since I already have the engine out. Okay, so now that that's pretty loose, so that head bolt and then that head bolt, they are basically the same. That one, oops. Okay, now I just popped it up, and the reason being is that head bolt I can't take off with this rocker arm on here. It actually needs to shift over. In fact, I think the new kit comes with new push rods. Let me just confirm that real quick. New head does have the push rods in there, so I don't have to really worry about what direction and stuff. So I'm just gonna pull these out and set them aside. And pull this up, and then I can loosen that and loosen that. And that's what we're looking at on the inside here. And that stuff must have fallen in. It looks like some carbon, some oil. It looks like this could have been leaking. So I'm gonna set this head just right over here. Now I'm curious. Ooh, that's a lot of play. So this engine actually is pretty well loved, I guess you could say. It's been working. I know it's showing its age. So then so technically I probably should get a short block for this. And then the head gasket, actually the head gasket doesn't look bad. I don't see anything, so I don't think this is from the head gasket. I don't want to get any debris in there. So I'm going to try to reduce that by stuffing these in here. So I got myself a little bit of mineral spirits. I'm going to go through, just kind of clean this up here. I need to be careful. I don't want to get mineral spirits down in there. That's a oil passage. So I just want to reduce anything I could get in there. So overall, this mower has been a really good mower, especially this engine. For it to have this type of amount of hours on it is pretty crazy. But overall, as long as you try to take care of your stuff as best as possible, make sure you're doing at least some oil changes and stuff, you could really prolong the life of your engine. Go through here. And what I'm doing is I'm feeling to how it feels by making sure I keep this completely flat. And I'm also trying to wipe out any debris away. And then those sometimes are I mean, you generally can pull those out, but sometimes they're a real pain. And with my finger, I'm just helping make sure it stays nice and flush. So if this was a customer's engine, not mine, I'd probably recommend a short block at least. I mean, they could take a chance and go this route, but I mean, this is a lot of work. So personally, I would get a short block at this point, or a complete engine. Okay. Blowing out the threads area. So yeah, looking at this, see that much play, that's a lot. That's a lot. So we're rolling this down. Let me grab some paper towels. And in here, how are we looking? Yeah, that's a lot of play. That is a lot, look at that. And I know I'm burning oil. I do know that. And at the top. I'm not gonna go all the way down, but yeah. So that, technically, I would do a short block. For a customer, I would definitely do a short block. I wouldn't let that fly. But this is my mower. We're gonna just do the head. Okay, so this head is all clean and ready to go. Let me put a little bit of paper towel there just to block that off. Now we need to put this head together. So let me just confirm I have the right one. So this is for cylinder 1. And This one has cylinder 1 right here. So I did get the right one, which is good. Okay, what we got to do is we got to lap these valves. I have my valves in here and making sure everything's clean. I'm going to apply a little bit of oil on the stem. And then do the same thing on the other one. And I don't want any oil out here. What we got to do is we got to lap these valves to this head. And what that does is we apply a little bit of lapping compound on the edge here, and we lap the valves to get it to cut in and then completely seal. So what I do is I grab a little bit of this lapping compound and making sure you don't get any of it anywhere else except the edge of this. We don't want too much. We just want, because you don't want to get it down, we just want it on this edge. And this lapping compound is about done. It's getting pretty, it looks like it's getting a little bit dry. Okay, and then carefully putting that back in, just like so. Now I'm going to wipe my hands off. And with our lapping tool. So this is where these kind of become a pain, is sometimes these don't stick really well. Like right there, it's good, but sometimes they don't stick really well. So what I have done is I've used a little bit of hot glue on here and here to help them stick. But let's see if we can try to get this. So I'm lifting up and tapping down and going back and forth, and I'm just gonna keep doing this. And I gotta do it to both of them. And what I'm doing is I'm looking at the edge and I'm seeing how it's looking. And so far things are looking pretty good. We'll do this for a little bit. So let's do the other one real quick. First, before we do the other one, let's get this wiped off. And I'm looking along here, and so far that looks pretty good. I'm gonna wipe the edge off. And then we definitely have to clean this. I'm gonna clean in my solvent tub. And I'm looking to see if there's, it doesn't look shiny. So that's all meshing. And got to be careful, make sure the stem doesn't have any of that lapping compound on it. Then I'm going to grab some WD, make sure, kind of blast that through. There we go. All right, so now let's do our other one. Pull it out, get some lapping compound on here. So right here, this is what it looks like before. It's all dark. And then over here, it looks all shiny all the way around. Apply some lapping compound on the edges. Try not to get too carried away because I don't want to get down onto that stem by any means. And then there we go. We gotta do the same thing with this one. So let's pull this off. Let's clean it up. Let's wipe off our lapping compound. And as you can see, it's kind of a silver all the way across, which looks good. And wipe this off. And then we're going to take this to the solvent tub and we're gonna clean this. And this should be, there we go. So we're gonna clean this up real good. These valves, make sure they're all nice and clean of any lapping compound. Take this one out, clean it up. Set aside. And then the head, we need to clean this real good. We don't want any of this lapping compound in here. So these need to make sure they're very, very clean. Now that we got our head nice and clean, we're going to go ahead and install our valves, our spark plug, and our springs and everything. So let's go ahead and pull this out. What I'm going to do is first put some oil on these stems and slide it in. So this one actually goes here. And then I'm going to do the same thing on this one. And then we're going to need our valve springs. Go one here, one there. Rocker arms. Let's just lay all this stuff out that we have some keepers. So these stem seals, they'll go in and down on this. So what you're going to do is I'm going to just apply a little bit of oil there. A little oil on here. And then push it through, straight down. And all of this stuff will just burn off. Okay, that's on. Then we have our bottom pieces. I can't remember what those are called exactly. And we have our springs. And these, I believe, are the same. There's no color on them or anything. Sometimes they'll have like a blue. Oh yeah, see right there, blue and blue. So these are the same. And then we have basically our hats. These go down. And then these have to get pressed down. So before I actually do that, we'll start with the one. Now, the best way of doing this, you could do it by hand, and boy, you will kill your hand it's not fun. So what's nice about this tool is this tool, you can, I'll set this right here. We'll show you here in a second. But basically, this tool, you can set this pin. Let me see if it's even the right length right now. Okay, good. Okay, so what's cool about this tool is this tool will really help you allow to get these valve springs on. So what I got to do is put this hat on here, and then I got to set it. I had the bottom piece on there. I got to set that as centered as possible. I'm going to take this, let me push this up because that popped down. So this is open. Let's see, do I have it open all the way? I do. And then you put the, right like that. Okay, so now, if you'll notice, I have, that's what that little indent is in there for, is so you can get your center pin on your valve there, and then you can compress your valve spring, and then this will cup your little hat, and then you can squeeze this gently and get that valve spring compressed. Now there's a nice little latch here that has steps in it. Right now I have it latched down. So then what you can do is get your little keepers, get one in on one side, and then get your other one in on the other, which will have to kind of rock. You might have to rock this a little bit. All right, this is kind of a pain. So let's go right like this. Try to make this a little easier and a little easier to see. Okay, so we are a little too far down. So let's release a little tension. We'll lock it right there. So that one's right there. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna pull this down, give it a little bit, see how it kind of tucked in. Right there. So now we got them both in. Now I can slowly let up, and then I can release this lock, because now our valve spring is latched. So then what I always recommend doing is just give it a little tap with a rubber mallet. Just make sure that those are seating right, and that one's good. So now let's get our other one on. So get our little cup here, put it in there, our valve spring, the hat. Make sure this is opened up all the way, and this is the lower one. So I gotta get on here. There we go. I'm gonna go into the first part, lift this up like this. Get one of our keepers in on one side. Get our other keeper. In the direction it goes, the taper in goes, so the side down, that goes down. This little spot up here is towards the top on both of them. So I got to go down a little bit more. See, now I'm getting that valve kind of at an angle. Some of these are, I want to reset. Making sure. I'm going to put my thumb on that and just help kind of guide it in. There we go, got it in. Now I'm going to let it up gently. I'm making sure it's in that spot. Now I'm all the way up. I'll pull this off. Now I'm going to give it a little tap. Just make sure those are retaining properly and everything looks good. So now, yeah, see, if you do this by hand, it's a pain. I have done it, but it is the biggest pain. All right, so now got our spark plug. I put a little anti-seize on it. I'm gonna put it on here. And then I'm gonna show you a way that you can check to make sure you lapped it properly and everything is sealed. Let's get our valve or spark plug in. Okay, now we can take this, and what we're gonna do is I'm gonna put some gas on here, and I'm gonna let it sit for a little bit. And what you can do is you can fill it all the way up to the top here, and that should stay like that. You should have no fuel leaking out or anything. Reason why I use gasoline is because it's much thinner in viscosity, and so it will slowly seep in around there if these valves are not lapped or they're worn out or whatnot. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that. So I use a piece of wood in here because it helps kind of hold this a little bit nicer. So cut that on there, and we're gonna pour a little gasoline in here. Like that. And pour the rest of this back in this gas can real quick. I know I have a little bit of gas over here and stuff because I did fill it up pretty high. And you can see, I don't see any bubbles or anything, like it's slowly leaking out. And everything is looking good so far. You look down here, you don't see anything dripping, nothing slowly seeping out. So we'll give it a 5 minutes. We'll come back to it, and everything should be good. So it's been about 5 minutes now, and everything's flush up to there. So yeah, it's good. So that's one way you can check to make sure that those valves are properly lapped and sealing. So let's go ahead and soak that up. So in our kit, we have some, it looks like these are probably for, I'm not sure exactly what, these might be intake, but I think these are for the intake bolts. I'm not 100% sure. These are the studs for the exhaust. And then these are the nuts for the exhaust. We have some intake and exhaust gaskets. These are intake gaskets here. And then I believe we have our head gasket behind this. So I don't suggest ripping these. I suggest cutting these. So cut these open. Because you rip it, you can run a risk of messing up your gasket. So now we can take this out. I am going to get a little bit of mineral spirits. I'm going to wipe that down. Just make absolutely sure that that is free of oil in anything. Now we'll grab our head gasket. And on the head gasket, we have a flat side, and then we have a side that has some numbers on them and stuff. So I believe the numbers face up. So I'm going to quickly look at the service manual and just confirm this. This service manual is for the ECV 630 through the ECV 749. I have the 650. So the head gasket for this particular engine that I have, it's the ECV 650, and I have it that has the hex flange screws. So it says here, install with the head gasket with part numbers facing up, which I do, and then I need to start the 4 hex screws. The first 2 or the first torque stage would be 200 inch-pounds, and then finally 370 inch-pounds, following the sequence in figure 1034. So sequence 1034, we're doing head number 1, which I showed earlier, and so it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's the sequence we need to do it for head 1. If you're doing a head 2, it's going to be this way: 1, 2, 3, 4. So if you're doing this at home, make sure you're following that sequence. So what you can also do too is, in case you have it on the computer, like the PDF, or even if you have it on your phone, you can, take a picture of it, and then that way you can quickly reference things. So what I did is I took a picture of this, so I don't have to go back to the computer to remember the sequence for this particular head. So we need the head bolts, and I need to pull the head bolts off of this other, out of this other head here. So to do that, I need an 8. I got that one off, and I got that one out. Move that over here, and I'm going to clean these head bolts real good with our mineral spirits. Now that our head bolts are clean, make sure our head is clean, and we are going to go ahead and install this. So we have our head gasket in the up position. This is cylinder number 1, and over here is also cylinder number 1 right there. So these are the same. There we go. And then get these guys started. And all I'm doing is, just because I don't want to sit there and use my wrench forever, just get these down. So according to the service manual, which I took a screenshot of, it says the first stage is going to be 200 inch-pounds and then 370 after. So let's set it to 200 inch-pounds. So 200 inch-pounds, and then we're going to torque it in the sequence that they provide. And so what you can do is, if you have your phone or if you print it, you can lay it out in the proper orientation so you can quickly reference it as you go through. So let's get this one. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so now we need to go up, and that is 370 inch-pounds. So we're going to set this at 370. We're at 370 inch-pounds now, and we're going to do the same thing. So number 1. Now I'm getting some torque on it, so I gotta kind of like hug this thing. I know what I gotta do. I want to put my legs around it. There we go. So that's 1, and then 2, 3, 4, There we go. So we need to install our push rods and stuff, and these are exactly the same. There's no markings on them. They're not made of different metals. On Briggs, they like to do like aluminum and a steel. Yeah, they like to do some interesting things. But anyway, we need to apply some lube. I like to use some Lucas Assembly lube, and then to the ends, and make sure it seats down in there on the top of the lifter. So you can see the hydraulic lifter right there and the one right here, and they're seating just inside there. Now we need to apply some assembly lube in here where this is going to be rocking on, and apply a little on the ends of our rocker arms and such. Now, I'm just going a little more, but these are other points of contact. So we got to get our rocker arm underneath, right like that, and get our stud started. So I'm just going to get it close. Or actually, I can't put these on underneath. I almost forgot. I need to actually torque this down first. And I actually got to use my spanner wrench to do that. So I cannot do that. Let me get it out from underneath. There we go. I got to get this stud torqued down, but I need to make sure this is sitting in the right orientation, just like that. So I just got it snug, and if I lift up, that looks nice and flush over that. It's not way over here, it's not way over here. So that one's ready. I got to do the same thing to this one. This hole, where the hole is, that's actually where your push rod goes, and where it's flat here, that's where it goes on top of your valve spring or your valve spring stem. And I'm trying not to get any assembly lube onto my stud, or my bolt, I should say, for my rocker arm. I'm getting it close, and then I'm making sure that it's going to be lined up as it should. Yes, okay. Now we need to torque these two hex flange screws to 105 inch-pounds. There we go, 105 inch-pounds. I'll install this on here. That one's torqued. And that one's torqued. The part number for this tool is 34-305. It's a spanner wrench, and you basically hook it up on the top here and pull this down to then get your push rod underneath. Now, the problem is these hydraulic lifters are not 100%, they're not bled, so that's going to be a little bit of a challenge. So the problem I'm having is that these hydraulic lifters are not bled. I would technically need to push down to bleed some of this out so I can use my spanner wrench to get it under there. Now, unfortunately, to do that will be a chore. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to break these loose a little bit. I'm going to get it just underneath using my spanner wrench. And then so then we're going to go ahead and torque that back to 105. Let me grab my torque wrench. So it's at 105 still. And we're going to torque that. Now I'm going to loosen this one up and perform the same thing. So we get this loose. And using the spanner wrench, lift up. What I'm doing is I'm also getting the spanner wrench just off to the side a little bit so I can kind of, there's a little bit more room right here in the center. So I'm trying to get it, there we go, just like that. And then I'm going to hold this in position, making sure that stays centered, and slowly snug it up. And that's seating. Move it over just a little. There we go. Now we're kind of centered. And then we're going to torque that at 105 inch-pounds. Like so. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to slowly rotate this. So there's our exhaust. And then, I'm sorry, that's intake. And then there's our exhaust. And so what I'm doing is I'm turning it very slowly to help kind of bleed those down a little bit. Normally what you could do is you could pull those hydraulic lifters out and put them in your press, take a valve and slowly press down on the hydraulic lifter to help kind of bleed them out. I'm kind of going around that. This is a little bit, so I'm kind of going out around the norm, I should say. So what I'm doing is I wanted to bleed it down a little bit, and then so I can release some of the tension that the hydraulic lifter might be pushing on these. And then I'm going to just double check the torque of those. So now I'm going to set the engine at top dead center. So I think that's top dead center, but let's just double check. So here's our intake. Yeah, see, it's a lot easier. And then there's our exhaust. Okay, now it should be coming up to TDC. Oops, we're right there. Now I'm going to torque this. 105 inch-pounds. And they are good. All right, so according to the service manual, they say that you basically just take the spanner wrench and pop them under. Well, the problem is those hydraulic lifters, when they're not bled down, that can be a pain in the butt. Now, when I was turning this over, when they are not bled down, it can be hard, and you don't want to force it. So because what can happen is if they don't bleed down right away, you could end up bending these push rods. So you don't want to have that happen. So I just took my time and turned it over by hand like you saw, and everything felt great. Once I bled it down, then I went ahead and torqued it, and they should be fine. I forgot I have had to do something like this before, and I've never had an issue that way. But I know there's going to be some of you out there saying that's not how you do it. Well, it does work, and I personally have not had any issues. Even if you look at this instruction, so the command twin cylinder head gasket service kit, it says right here, dip the ends of the push rods in engine oil, lift the rocker arms with a spanner wrench under the rocker or rocker arm tool. See Service Manual Section 2, and reinstall the push rods in the original position. Rotate the engine by hand, 1 revolution, so it's a TDC between the exhaust and intake stroke. Let the engine sit for 10 minutes to allow the lifters to bleed down. Rotate the engine by hand, 2 complete revolutions, and any binding occurs. This is not from compression. Repeat the bleed down procedure until engine turns over freely by hand, and then completely reassemble. So essentially that's basically what I did, because with hydraulic lifters you got to be careful. You got to make sure that those hydraulic lifters do bleed down, and as you can see, everything is turning over nicely, and it seems like we are getting some decent compression considering the amount of piston play I have. So I'm going to go ahead and clean this, and then let's go ahead and reinstall our valve cover, and let's also reinstall our spark plug real quick. There we go. And then let's clean our valve cover. I want this surface nice and clean. All right. Now this, let's see. Oh, this is actually the intake side. That's the exhaust side. I didn't realize this was the top end of the engine. So now we'll set this on here. And I have the 4. So this is the old head. But before we apply the anti-seize, I want to clean these with some mineral spirits to just make sure they're degreased. Then with a little bit of our anti-seize, and trust me, anti-seize is your friend. It will save you a lot of heartache. I know it's kind of quite a bit that I'm putting on, but stuff like this, you know, if I have to get to the valve cover, easy. So if it was leaking or whatever, not a big deal. I can easily access it. Like when it comes to having to pull the whole head off and redo that, that's a whole nother story. So I always try to take a lot of precaution when doing things and making sure I do it as close to the book as possible. And that way, if there's any issues, it's because the service manual was wrong, and I can take it up to the manufacturer in those cases, but rarely are they wrong. I mean, they can be wrong. All right, so now that we got the valve cover on, I want to close up our intake here and our exhaust. I grabbed a couple pieces of paper towel, and I'm just going to kind of fold it up and just kind of place it inside there. Just going to help cover and reduce anything that can get in there. So now we got to get our shields back on. I have 2 over here. I have this one and I have this one. I'm gonna take this and clean this up. So there's generally nothing clean about doing stuff like this. Usually especially engines that are well used. You just got to do the best you can. There we go. So this shield went on here like so. So that's the bottom side and the upper side. And then I have this bolt here that I put in place. Goes like that. So I'm going to clean this bolt and apply a little bit of anti-seize on it. Because if I didn't, probably next time I'm going to take it off, if I wanted to, it might be seized up. So I just got that one started, and then I have the one off of this head here. There's this one right here that needs to come off. Looks like there was something on here at some point that seized up. I think that was part of the exhaust. So let me clean this one here and do the same thing. Put some anti-seize on it and just get it started. Now I know I have another shield that goes on here, and so they did not pre-drill these, so these are self-tapping, and I can actually tell when I look at it, they almost look triangle-ish, have kind of a semi-triangle to it, so you can see from there to there to there over. So it's kind of like a triangle. So these are self-tapping. So I'm going to set that just like that. I got to grab the other shield, and that's this guy here. Wipe it off with a little bit of mineral spirits. And then this went like this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get that started. So keeping it straight up and down. Just applying some light pressure. And it is starting. And I'm going to get this one started. I don't know how deep this goes, so I'll feel it. It will probably stop, and that's where I don't want to go any further, which I think it's about right there. So I'll loosen that back up. And then I am going to go find myself a decent bolt that is probably this size. Let me pull this one out because I think that one's a little bit longer. So this one is the shorter one. This is the longer one. So I'm gonna grab another bolt like this, this size. And before I do that, I'm gonna take this longer bolt, put it back in the center here and just get that started. And then I'm gonna go find a bolt. So I found another bolt. It is the same size as this one. This one's a little shorter, but I wanna take a look in here. And this actually, I should be able to go, basically thread this down all the way. So I'm gonna take this bolt back out. Since this one's a self-tapper, this one is not. So if you look at these two, you can see that this one's completely round and that one is more of a triangle. That's a self-tapper. So I don't want to use this as a self-tapper. So I'm going to run this through and get this run down all the way, because I should be able to get this one much further than I did last time. I was just playing it super safe because I didn't see what it looks like. And I think that's plenty. Yeah. actually, and it looks like it's going all the way. Cool. So we tap that down all the way, so we know that that bolt will be just fine. Because the metal that for the, so right here, if you look here, this bracket will go up on here. So it will actually, this bolt won't go down all the way. So let's go ahead. I'm gonna put a little bit of anti-seize back on this and reinstall here. Plenty of anti-seize. And then reinstall this lower bolt. And this went on like this. And then I want to take some anti-seize for this new used bolt. And I'm going to make sure I got plenty on it. And that's going to go on like so. So this went over, and before I can install the starter, I got to get this shield back in place. And this, let's see, goes like that. So before I put that on, I want to get this extra crud off. Use this to kind of scoop up and scrape out all of this. Just kind of wipe this down. And then I'm going to use a rag to kind of just wipe everything down. There we go. Right, good enough. Okay, now there is a whole bunch of crap back here that I found when we pulled that starter off out of the way. So just try to get a lot of this gunk out. Gonna take this bolt out because that's gonna be for the shield, and that's where it is retained down here at this point. In fact, before I do that, let me clean a little bit of this oil off because this is behind the starter. All right, I think that's fine. I can clean up in this area a little bit better without having to remove anything. All right, so now I got that bolt out, and we have this bolt here that connects to here. So we're going to take that one out. And I'm going to clean these two bolts real quick. So all I'm doing is just kind of going through, just clean when I have a bolt that I got to put back in. I'm going to clean it up, and then I'm going to apply some anti-seize. Now, some people might say, oh, you're going overboard. I personally, I beg to differ. I've learned my lesson about not doing this. Like, for example, on my other 52-inch carbureted Kohler engine, I had one of these valve cover bolts could not get off. In fact, it snapped, and then I had a shop try to even take out the remainder of the bolt, and he could not either. And this is during the time when I owned my landscape maintenance business, and I was super busy. I didn't have the time, so he ended up having to replace the head. So just that little 2-cent dab or cent dab or whatever can save you a large amount of money in the long run. So this one goes over here. This is the longer one. Just going to get it started. And this is the shorter one. I need to grab my 8mm socket. I'm going to put it on this extension. And this one, it's kind of a pain to see, but it goes up over here. Whoops. So it's kind of hidden under here, but basically into that plate, and then there's a little part that I'm screwing into. Now this can slide up and down, so what I got to do is I'm looking up here, see this hole right up here, I can lift it up and down, slide it side to side. Now I'm going to get it centered like I'm screwing it down, and then I'm going to get this snug to try to make sure that that is as close to it as possible. Now I'm going to go ahead and snug that up. And it's just tin that it's screwing into, so you don't need to go crazy. And then over here, this is actually going into the engine block. So this one I get snug, and then little turn like that. That's all you got to do. Okay, so since I'm over here, I'm going to go ahead and get our spark plug wire reinstalled, and everything else is okay for this moment. Okay, so now we're going to switch over to the intake side of things. We're not going to install the starter just yet because I don't believe that's going to be in our way. So this intake here, we just kind of tucked around the side. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of make sure all of these plugs, electrical connections, are kind of blown out as best as possible. Okay, and then we have you here, and we need to clean off any remnants of the intake gasket. So making sure that these plugs stay, we can take those off. Everything looks, yeah, that looks okay. And we are gonna clean this surface. So there we go. That looks pretty good. Take a little bit of mineral spirits, dab it on my paper towel, clean off that side. And what I was doing is, so this will connect over here to that side of the tube. They're shared. And what I'm going to do is, there isn't any debris in here, but I was making sure that I can see that that injector looked clear and then clean, and that does. And now let's go ahead and clean off this one. I'm just feeling the surface, making sure I don't feel any kind of gasket material or anything. And the same thing, apply some mineral spirits and wipe off the top. And if I blow through here, any debris, path of least resistance is going to be right here. So now I don't feel anything coming out, which is good. Same thing right there. Now, I want to make sure the surface of this is clean. Put some mineral spirits too. This is the new head, so, and it's threaded, pre-threaded. This is the old. And then I'm going to make sure I'm blowing out the threads there, making sure that's fairly clear. Now, make sure there's no gasket material or anything that I need to worry about. And then with some mineral spirits again, clean the end off like so. It looks like that valve's closed, so just blowing in, make sure everything's good. And that one's open, so definitely don't want to blow in there. Okay, so with this particular intake gasket, it's a sticky type. I'm gonna clean this off on my wire wheel. I have a lock washer. I remember putting these on because these were coming loose over time, and I'll show you that bulletin too. So let me go run these on the wire wheel real quick. All right, so I ran these on the wire wheel, and I mean, they're a little bit pitted and stuff. I mean, I don't need to go crazy. I mean, you can see some of the pits and stuff. I mean, they're used bolts, so, and it'll work. I just, you know, in the end, I'll probably end up having to replace this engine. I mean, there is obviously some pretty good play, especially in that cylinder. So I do know it does burn some oil, so I'm just trying to get a little bit more life out of it, and then I'll end up probably getting a short block, or I'll probably end up just replacing it completely. But for now, we're just going to try to prolong its life. So after cleaning these, I put the lock washer back on. I put those on there. That's not stock. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some anti-seize, and I'm just going to coat this. That way, in that sleeve, in that cavity, it helps, you know, if there got any water in here, hopefully it help kind of reduce any of the rust or corrosion that you might see, kind of similar to what happened to the fan bolt. And of course, there's a little bit of anti-seize on the threads too. Here is our intake gaskets. And they have some stickum to it. And the orientation is like so. So this would actually get stuck down like that. And this one stuck down like that. And then we'll get the little plastic or the backing removed. There we go. I'm not a huge fan of these, but there we go. So that will kind of semi-hold in place. And then now we get this one off, the backing. Sometimes you can take the pick. Just try to grab that edge, peel it off. Same gig on here. There we go. So now that we got that clean, we made sure we don't have any debris in here. I'm gonna rotate this, taking care there to not get any debris into anything. One note is I had a washer, or in general, it did have a washer for the ground wire, and that's this guy right here. So when I rotate this over, don't want that. So that's the thing, is like this, I have to be careful. So I'm gonna rotate this over, and then this comes over. So it's gonna be right like this. So the ground strap is gonna be this one here. So that's where the washer bolt goes. So I'm gonna set this gently on there. So I got one there. I'm gonna try to get one over here. What I'm doing is I'm holding this up, and this one goes here. I'm gonna just get this where it's seating flush. And the same thing on this one. And this one here. Okay, so this is where this ground goes there. Now I'm just gonna kind of clean this up gently. Yeah, we gotta be careful with this. Ouch. Let me get this through. And that should be good. So then this will come up. I'll get this snug. So I'm kind of holding this wire here, and I'm trying to hold it to keep it from rotating under there. I'm just getting this snug, and now we'll have to torque these to spec. So according to the service manual, it says install the intake manifold, install the intake manifold new gaskets, and then make sure the gasket is in the proper orientation, which we did. And then it says see figure 1039 and 1040. Using the sequence in 1041, torque the 4 screws to 2 stages, 69 inch-pounds, then 93 inch-pounds. And the stages are right here, or I mean the torque sequence is 1, 2, 3, 4, so in, out, out. And then they came out with a service bulletin, and the service bulletin is this. So they've received reports of loose intake manifold bolts. This is my particular engine on the ECV 650. I've had a lot of these issues, and so basically they want you to torque it to 2 stages, 69 inch-pounds, then 93. We need to torque these to spec, and how this works in this orientation, so it kind of tapers down like this if you look, which is basically the same thing here. And that's what's also nice is you can take a quick picture of the service manual. So it says the 2 inner ones, 1, 2, 3, 4, 69 inch-pounds, and then 93 inch-pounds. So let me set my torque thing to 69 inch-pounds. Okay, so the lowest this one will go is 71. Not a big deal. And 71 inch-pounds, we're gonna go at 71 first. Let me install this. So if your torque wrench goes lower, I would suggest going down to the 69 as it recommends. Now keeping this straight. That's that. And then I gotta be careful watching this wire. That one. And we go out here to the outer bolt. Gotta make sure this wire loom stays where it should be. Okay. And this outer one here. Okay, so that's 69. Well, in my case, it's 71. And now we need to go up to 93. There we go. We're at 93 inch-pounds. We do it the same, exactly the same thing. Accidentally turned it off. Okay. That one, and back out here. And then this outer one. There we go. So now we have our intake mounted and torqued down. So I need to get all of this wiring all hooked back up. Now, making sure all of this is clear. All the contacts are clear. And I'm going to start from this side over here and work my way this way. Now, these should all be particular. You shouldn't be able to plug this into just anything. So this one connects up here. So what I'm going to do is make sure it's all clear. And then I'm going to take a little bit of dielectric grease. And then I'm going to apply a little bit of dielectric grease on the ends here. I'll leave it a little bit heavy, and then I'm going to reconnect it. And so what I did is I had to loop this over because I don't want to like apply torque on this. And now this is closed. So this is now good. Now we're going to do the next one, which is this is the injector. Do the same thing, apply a little bit of dielectric grease. Well, that was a lot in this case. And that clipped in. Clean this one as best as possible. Do the exact same thing. And what's nice about the dielectric grease, it'll help. Hold on, I just want to make sure. What's nice about the dielectric grease, it will help kind of reduce corrosion and rust and stuff. Now, the thing is I don't feel good about what I just did here. I need because you see this line right here. This is kind of jammed in there, so I don't think that this is actually fully clipped down. So let me pull it back up. Let me get that out and over, and then let's push this one back down. And with the dielectric grease, it also makes things a little easier to pull on and off too. Then should be another injector here. Just a dab of it, like so. And then that should clip in. That one, I think they had it going up underneath here. So, and that was the one that I needed the screwdriver for. Let's see if I can do that again. Push that through like so, and then kind of lift up. Yep, that worked. So I'm going to try, without reefing on this, see if I can lift this up enough and slip it back under, and then reconnect it. There we go. Okay, so that's on. And then this was zip tied up like this. So we're gonna do that. This was also zip tied over here to retain all of this. So this here, see how this went over? I want it underneath. So I'm gonna pull this one back out. And what's nice is with the dielectric grease, it makes it that much easier. So that really should go in there. So there's all the little details that you got to kind of look at and watch for when you're putting this all back together. So let me grab a couple zip ties. So I think we're pretty good here. This band here and this here, this is actually like a step, a shelf for a zip tie. So I'm going to run a zip tie under here all the way around. Sometimes what you can do is you can bend these like this, and then that way you can kind of easily loop around. Makes it a little bit easier. Like that. And I'll snip that here in a second. Then on this side, same gig. Goes under. See how I kind of was able to kind of wrap it over, wrap it around, I should say. There we go. So that's on. Try to make sure there's not a lot of strain on this wire. That's another thing, is you really don't want a lot of strain on the wires because they can fatigue at the points here. So, okay, so that's secured and that's secure. Let's cut these off. The ends of the zip tie. And over here, this can be, I think this actually got bent. So this goes up like that and then clipped on like so. Then I'm going to take this connector off and I'm going to blow it out and do the same thing. So basically I'm going through all of these connectors, applying some, cleaning them out, applying some dielectric grease, and then reinstalling them, especially since I'm already in here. Now we have our fuel line, our high pressure rail here. Definitely don't want to get any debris in that. We're going to reconnect it over here. This here. I'm going to reconnect it. Like so. There we go. So that's reconnected. How this fuel system works on this mower or this engine is you have a low pressure pump that's coming from your tank to then fill, using the low pressure pump to fill your high pressure pump, which is this one here. And on this guy, it has this guy here. It fills up and then it supplies high pressure up the fuel line to the fuel rail, which you have an ejector here, and it rolls over, and then you have an ejector here. And that's how this is set up. So let's continue. I'm going to turn this around. We have our throttle position sensor. And clean that. Apply some dielectric grease. And we have our breather tube. I'm gonna go underneath the breather tube and then reconnect right there. And then we have these two left. So, oops, I'm gonna snake it over into that. And that clipped on, and then apply some dielectric grease, and that's holding there nicely. And then this is to our O2 sensor for the exhaust, and I think we are about ready for that actually. Let's go ahead and get our throttle connected back to our governor. So we have our throttle anti-lash spring, which is this guy here. This loops up and sometimes these can be a little bit of a pain. So there's a little spot right there. So right there, move this over a little bit, there's a little hole for that spring, and that's where I connected. Now I have my little plastic clip that I put off to the side, this guy, and how this works is you push it up through the hole, essentially up through the hole, and then it goes in with it out like that, and then you clip over to lock it. So, but before I do that, I got to put this piece back on there. The reason you want to do this now before you do the exhaust, because the exhaust is going to be in the way. So if you look there, you get into this hole like so, and then we rotate this and it locks it in place. Now we got to get our spring reinstalled, and let me grab a little pair of pliers. So making sure that spring is still installed on the other side, grab the end of it and then loop it on there. Now that's installed. So that spring is reinstalled. So we're going to go ahead and reinstall the engine cover and stuff to help protect all of this stuff. So all I did was just double check in, make sure everything is in place. We have our throttle control arm here that's connected down to the governor. Everything else is in place. Now before we install the engine cover, we need to address this fan here. One, you want to make sure there's no debris in the fan, otherwise you won't get the proper cooling and everything. And another thing that I want to check is just make sure, since I have the engine cover off, I make sure all the fins are as clear as possible. And for the most part, they're pretty clear. I can see that I need to blow or try to clear out a little bit down here. So let me go ahead and do that. And what you can also do to help clear those fans or the fins, so you're going to get a long, small screwdriver and then just kind of go down and clear, make sure the fins are clear. They have the inspection plate on this one, which is on the cover. They have this here and this here that you can take off to inspect to make sure these fins are clear too. So I'm gonna clear as much as I can real quick. And that looks good. So what's happening is with the fan on here, air's coming in and it's blowing down the engine and out and around to blow out all to cool the engine. So that's why it's very important to keep those fins clean and clear as best as possible. Okay, so now that I made sure that that's clear, let's go ahead and get our fan. Make sure that's clean. And sometimes these are keyed. This is, it looks like it's made for a carbureted engine. Usually this is where the flywheel will be a little bit different. It has a magnet here on the flywheel, and the flywheel's keyed, so it's timed that way. This one is timed by these markers, and then the ECU's adjusting accordingly. So in this case, the only things here are these two little studs. I just need to make sure they fit in, and it looks like it's probably these two or these two, or actually no, it is these two, because those are where this bolts go to retain the fan. So it goes on like this, and how you know is it'll lock down into place. So now we can grab our fan cover or engine cover, and in here I'm going to get some of this crud out, and of course everything's getting dirty. Okay, so I cleaned out the inside of this too. Now we can set this on, and how you can tell which direction, you can see that this is actually has a little recess here, so that means that this goes on the inside. There we go. Rock this back. The reason also for the shipping blanket is to make sure also that output shaft is not rubbing on like metal and stuff and marring that up. That's why also I use the shipping blanket. Okay, so we'll grab one of these bolts and set it, get that kind of in place, and just kind of set it. So let me grab, so I have to push that. There we go. Get that started. And that's going to hold that in place there. And now I just kind of work around. Sometimes that is a little easier. It's a little easier to do that way. Especially since I don't have it in the mower. Seeing like here's that metal piece that's sticking up a little bit. This piece here is also, so let me get bolt. Okay, so I got one just started there, and we're kind of working our way this way. It's really a kind of a pain when it's not installed, but that's okay, we'll make it work. Take that breather tube off, and part of it is this here. Yes, that tin. There we go. We'll get in there. Set that there. I'm going to set this breather tube back in. Reduce getting crap in there. So part of it, what it was, is right over here where I bent that up, it actually was supposed to be down. And so what was happening was I was fighting against it, trying to push this down. It was pushing it up with this whole harness here. So that's what, most of what was going on. So now that we got that in place, let's go ahead and tighten these down. But before I do that, I need to pull them up or clean these current ones that I have, and then we're going to put some anti-seize and start getting them back into place. The ECU is going to be mounted here. And I am going to put that on, but I want to get some of this started. So that's just started. Take this one back out, clean it, put some anti-seize. Okay, have that snug. Kind of rotate this. This connector here, clean this out. And then I'm going to apply some dielectric grease in each one. And then connect it. And snug this bolt. And these are small, so you don't need to torque them. Just snug them. Some of it's just going in some tin. So on this side, we have this engine lift piece, and we got to put this back on. So I'm going to clean up this bolt, and then I'm going to clean up that bolt. Put some anti-seize on it. Now I'm going a little overboard, but this is how I do some stuff where I don't want to come back and ever have to deal with a seized bolt. This is the longer stud or bolt. Remember that. And then get these snugged up. There we go. So here's our fuel pump. Our fuel pump mounts to that. And got to take this bolt out and this one. I'm going to do the same thing to all of these. Okay, so bent that just a little bit, so I'm making sure that's bent back. And unfortunately, it looks like this got tweaked a little. So I gotta pull this off. So this, I thought I tucked in, and unfortunately, I didn't. So, and it's just, yeah, I'm not gonna get it in there, but I gotta pull these off anyway because I wanna make sure there's anti-seize on this. So I'm gonna pull this off.
A few moments later.
I knew this was bound to happen. I went to take this plate off and it went on just like this. Went to take this off. So I took this off, went to take this bolt off because I needed to slide this out because the engine cover wouldn't allow me to get this rod kind of wedged through here, over here. So I have to actually pull it back and then slide it in and through. Well, when I went to take this off, even gently taking it off, it just sheared that bolt. So I got to pull this off all the way, and we need to try to get that out because I really kind of need this mounted properly as best as possible. So what we got to do now, unfortunately, is I'm gonna see if I can lift this up enough where I can get a nut over this and weld a nut onto this broken bolt, and then hopefully with the heat and everything I can get that off. So that's what we're gonna try to do. So I got to get this I keep calling it a heat shield, and it's not a heat shield, but it's basically an air guide. This is, now another note is if you ever pull this off, you're gonna have to readjust your governor. So I suggest not pulling these off if you can help it. So I got that bolt out. And we got to pull this bolt out. And that is the longer bolt for that. Really hoping I don't have to pull the engine cover, and I'm a little worried I'm going to actually possibly have to. I'm hoping I can pop it over just enough, and then I'm actually going to have to pop this fuel pump back off. Move that off and put these bolts back in place. So this is the thing, it's like a lot of the videos and stuff that you'll see, they're like brand new, everything works perfect. That's not going to be your real world experience. Unfortunately, I wish it was, but not all the time it is. So I'm pulling this off. This was the longer bolt. I'm going to set this aside. And now I can move this a little bit. Now we got to be careful because we do have some gas around. And so I need to, actually I'm going to pull this fuel filter off, and I'm going to disconnect it from this line here, because I don't feel comfortable having that fuel filter with some gas in it, especially when I have to go to weld. So those are things you got to keep in mind. If you're going to have to weld something, pay attention to what you have around you. I've already moved a propane tank that was sitting over there because I kind of had to reset now that I got into this predicament. Okay. Then Pop that. I'm gonna move this over here and grab a paper towel. Move this way out of the way. Just make sure any kind of dribbles are mostly out. So I'm not getting it on here or anything, which I didn't, which is good. Okay, so now I need to loosen up this bolt here, which is part of the, oops, the engine cover. I'm gonna pull that off. I'm gonna set this bolt aside. Now, hopefully I can lift this just enough. Yes, I did, which is perfect, thankfully. Okay, so I'm gonna set this bolt back in here and just kind of finger tight it. Or just at least get a few threads in it to hold that. And then I'm gonna do the same thing for, actually I'm not even gonna worry about those two for now. So on this side of the engine, we need to get this out. So what I like to do is clean, degrease that as best as possible. I'm gonna try to reduce some of the garbage on here. Like I really need to get some of this oil off. And then grab my air. And what I'm gonna do is try to clean up a little bit of this. Because I'm going to be welding right here, and I'm trying to reduce anything that could catch on fire. Okay, so now that I kind of got that cleaned, I'm going to grab a screwdriver or something and just kind of scratch at the ends of this, which is actually pretty fresh. It looks like it's pretty clean. It's pretty messed up. So we'll clean that up a little bit again with some mineral spirit. And we're gonna find a nut that we can fit just over that we can weld onto. So here's a 1/4 inch bolt, and I can kind of actually thread onto that. Is that actually, no, it's not 1/4, it's metric, but I'm actually able to get a little bit of threads on that, which is kind of nice actually. Now what's nice is this is aluminum head, so I'm not having to worry that my weld's going to stick to that so much, but I do want to make sure I get it nice and hot and weld it to this nut. So I'm going to make sure I have a wrench ready. So what I'm going to do, I have a few nuts here. I'm going to weld that on there, get it glowing, and then I'm going to let it cool just a little bit, and then I'm going to just gently see if I can start breaking that loose. Hopefully everything goes well. What I'm doing is I have my air next to me in case I need to snuff something out real quick. I can quickly do that. And I'm gonna purge out any air in my line. I ground it here. Now if I had the ECU hooked up, I would need to disconnect that and remove it, and I currently do. It's sitting on my bench over there. So the ECU is disconnected. You don't want to be welding on here with an ECU connected. You can end up frying your ECU if you're not careful. So we're going to go ahead and weld that. I have my air here again, just in case, and here we go. So now that it's hot, hopefully I can break it loose. Yes, look at that. Oh, nope, it didn't stick. So that's the problem. It's like sometimes those get pretty, we have to kind of get some bite to it. And it could be that I didn't weld right on there as good as I would like to have. So might have to crank up the heat a little bit. I do have it a little bit on the lower side. And when you put these on, these nuts, you want to make sure they're laying as flush as possible with the bolt. So if I had it at an angle, you won't be able to apply the proper torque to it. All right, so now I got that nice and flush. We're gonna weld it again. But this time I'm gonna take a little bit more care into making sure I get it more directly in the center. Okay, let's try that. I think, did we get it or did I break it off? Yep, I just broke it off. So it's not sticking really well. So let me grab a file. I'm gonna rough up the edge of that real quick. Just to make sure I'm getting some good metal. Okay, let's do that again. So I'm getting it flush. These are a little bit small, but that's fine. Okay, let's do that again. Give it a second. Oh, I think I got it this time. No, I didn't. Dang. Okay, so I'm gonna go up and temp a little bit. C35 in hopes that I can get that off. Okay, there we go. So we got that on. Let's go ahead and give it a shot. Oh, I think I'm starting to get it. I hope. No. Okay, so I have another idea. I'm gonna weld this on. I'm gonna grab my heat wire and I'm gonna see. Yeah, that was hot. So I'm gonna put this on. I'm gonna grab my heat wire. I'm gonna get this pretty hot. and see if I can get that off. So I've already tried multiple times to try to get this off with just some nuts, and that thing it's seized in there pretty good. So I'm gonna weld this on and grab my heat wire, and we're gonna see if we can help get that loosened up. And with inductance, it's going to heat that whole area up. Now, thankfully, it's sticking out. Now, I have used this on my old forklift. It's like a 1960 something forklift. And when you have bolts that are sticking out, it definitely helps. I don't think, yeah, I just broke it off of there. All right, so it is now the next day. I thought about this after late last night, trying to get that bolt, the rest of that bolt out, and all I'm doing is just slowly shortening that bolt. After thinking about this, I've had this mower. This mower actually is what started my business here. And this was back in 2012 that I started this business. And it was because of this mower and the intake manifold gaskets. So this stud here, or this bolt I should say, has been in there since 2010. That's when I bought this mower. So that because I've never pulled out and never had a chance to put anti-seize on it, it is probably permanently in this. I mean, I could get a torch and heat this up, and in the end, it's not worth it. The problem, after thinking about it, this engine is worn out. When we replaced this head, I showed that there's a lot of piston play. That's going to be the same thing on this side. I do know that this engine burns oil. This is my personal engine and stuff and mower. So I don't mind taking the chance on just replacing the head and stuff on the one side that I purchased over a year ago, and now just get into this. So in order to fix this, I would have to replace this head. To me, in the end, it's just not worth it now at this point. So now I could, essentially I could just, ignore that and just put this on and just hope that this doesn't move, or maybe tap it or whatever. This engine's worn out. At this point, it's just fighting me more and more, so it's just not worth it. So it's just time to move past. So what I decided to do last night, I decided to order a long block. So a long block means is that it'll have the heads and the head's already pre-installed, fully loaded, and the block with the piston and everything. Short block would be minus the heads, and then everything else. And then a long block is with the heads. Now I still got to transfer all of this stuff, all the electrics and possibly sensors and stuff onto the intake and everything onto a new long block. So I will do a video on that because this is not over. And so we're going to get this engine basically replaced with a long block, and then we'll continue with this mower and basically kind of bring it back to life. It's been a good engine. It's lasted 4,500 hours, so it's been a long time. So it's due, and we'll see you in the second part.